To me, it's not about the right or the left. It's about we're a country that's supposed to be built on competitiveness. But then in the political field, it seems like we want to do things to put people into categories and separate them so they can continue to have their little monopolies instead of trying to create systems that give us a vehicle that gets us the best people who really wake up every morning themselves and want to do the most good for the most people that they represent.
All good work is done in defiance of management.
I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not.
Go ahead, give me the finger.
The Dan Parsons Show.
Hey, welcome to the Dan Parsons Show. We're glad you tuned in. I am your host, Dan Parsons. Hey, coming up on today's show, Omaha attorney Wes Dodge. Wes is an advocate for open, nonpartisan primary elections, a theme that we like here on the Dan Parsons Show. But before I introduce Mr. Dodge, a shout out to our friends of Dan, our Patreon support team. If you'd like to support the #1 political podcast in Nebraska with your hard-earned cash, just a couple bucks would help, hop on over to patreon.com and look up the Dan Parsons Show and join the fun. Not only will you be helping support the #1 political podcast in Nebraska, but if you join during the month of October, hurry up, we're about done, you'll get a free Go Fact Yourself t-shirt, compliments of our friends at Raygun, the greatest store in the universe. Just go to patreon.com to sign up. Okay, here's my interview with Wes Dodge. Enjoy. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Wes Dodge, an attorney with over 35 years of legal experience in Nebraska. Wes serves on the board of directors for Common Cause, Nebraska, and Better Ballots, Nebraska. Wes, welcome to the Dan Parsons Show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and have a conversation with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we haven't. First of all, I have no idea how we've not met through the years. We've had to have been in the same room many times, I suspect. But anyway, it's good to meet you virtually, and I've enjoyed our conversations online, and so really look forward to this conversation, Wes.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, let's start with some headlines. I want to get to your efforts to reform Nebraska's election system, including, open primaries and ranked choice voting. I want to have you help our audience understand those proposed reform of our election system. But first, I want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on a story in today's Nebraska Examiner about the Nebraska Secretary of State being willing to hand over sensitive Nebraska voter data to the Trump administration. Let me just set it up and then I'll ask your comment. The Trump Justice Department sent a letter to the Nebraska Secretary of State, Bob Evnen, on September 8th with a September 22nd deadline, so obviously those have passed, to provide data. Common Cause, Nebraska sued to block the request, asking a Lancaster County District Court to find that the DOJ request violates Nebraska law protecting data privacy. So according to this story by Juan Solanas in today's Nebraska Examiner, the Trump administration has asked states for detailed information of their voter rolls, including names, dates of birth, driver's license numbers, and even the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers, saying that they want the information to ensure accurate voter registrations. Again, I understand that Common Cause is part of this lawsuit, but your thoughts on the state of Nebraska handing over sensitive voter data to the federal government?
All right. Before I get into it, I do want to give it I'm answering more from a lay position than the board position or a lawyer, but to some degree, it gets to our right to privacy philosophies that I think are really diminishing presently. I think it's an overstep that the DOJ is doing here. As I look into it, generally states have protocols, and there's certain things they will release and certain things they won't. And the Department of Justice is asking for more information than is typically provided. And you went through that, which is the date of birth, but they want the full date of birth. Typically, we just give the year. They want the full driver's license number, and they want the last four of your SOCH. Those are all high-risk identifiers, and we all see that there's breaches all the time in various ways. I think our state dropped the ball actually when Doge was digging in and getting information as well. I think we probably should have joined those lawsuits to stop that activity. But the bottom line is it's dangerous for our personal identifications. It's a breach of our privacy. And then getting into the philosophies that we're talking about today later on the show, I think it might be a bit of a chiller on registering to vote. If there's a lot of people that are slightly paranoid out there, and some more than others, but if you know that you do this and the government's going to have all this data on you, it would be another impediment to voting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of my general analysis of it. It's just we're putting more of our personal information out there that could potentially be easily accessed, and what are the purposes? And I think the purposes they say are to work with voter fraud issues. And I think you've done shows on this before. I think at best we've had 2 voter fraud, maybe 3 issues in the history of our state.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge overreach for something that isn't really a problem.
Well, and the story in the Examiner notes that the former Secretary of State, John Gale, had a similar request. I'm trying to remember what administration that would have been now, but and they denied the request. And so for some reason, I guess Bob Evenen is fine with turning that information over. So
I think politics has created a lot of situational morality now. Where,
yes, sir.
What's right and what wrong is wrong depends on if it's an R or a D asking for the information or asking for the behavior.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's so true. Well, good. Well, thanks, Wes, for commenting on that. I will continue to follow that story, but well, let's get into the meat of this conversation. Better Ballots is a nonpartisan group of Nebraska voters working to bring open primaries, ranked choice voting, and reform to the Cornhusker State. The organization is 100% volunteer, grassroots, donor-powered, and I like this mission statement. Better Ballots Nebraska, which was formerly known as Rank the Vote Nebraska, educates and promotes equal voices for all its citizens in shaping Nebraska's governing practices and ensuring its sustainability and longevity of equality before the law. So anyway, maybe just give our audience a little background of your involvement with the organization, how long the group's been around, and some of that.
I started attending some national meetings that one was, it initially was called Unrig the System, and then later it became known as the Democracy Summit. And through that, I met some people that got me involved with Common Cause. And then when I was involved with Common Cause, there were a few people trying to start a Rank the Vote chapter in Nebraska, and some connections there introduced me to them. And, I think the best way to go about it, I think people that listen to this show probably understand what open primaries are, but it's, we in essence use them for our legislative elections. But I think an example of how it hurts us would have been in the governor's race when Lindstrom and Pillen and Herbster were running, and people actually had to change their registration if they wanted to vote amongst those 3 people. And in Nebraska, the odds of the Republican winning are probably in excess of 95%. They might, I don't know. It's been a while since Nelson and Kerry, but those are the odds. So, and then I've gone and looked at the election data, and when you really break that down and look at who's in the primaries, and I don't have it in front of me right now, so I'm speaking in ballpark numbers. But in reality, when you look at, maybe 25 to 30% of the party may vote, then so you only have that percentage of the Republican Party, and then you have a three-way split in the primary
Yep.
between Pillen, Herbster, and Lindstrom. You may have 8% of the people, 8 to 10% of the
Yep.
people that are registered to vote in the state have now chosen our Republican candidate, and now that person is likely to become elected. And then when you dig deeper, it's kind of wild. I'm sure you've read Jonathan Haidt's stuff and that kind of thing, but there's a lot of psychology involved in all of this. And in order to win that primary, you got to lean as far right as you can.
Yep.
And then after you've leaned far right, now you have to go more to the center.
Traditionally,
And,
that's what the strategy's been. But anyway, keep going.
And so everything gets distorted mainly by the primary process and the fact we don't have open primaries. So I think our first step in Nebraska is the open primaries. Other states have done ranked choice voting, but I think that's the best way to get us to to electing people that really want to represent all of us, instead of somebody who's really worried about that 8 to 20% on the right or the left that can get them to the general election. And then a lot of people just think this is pointless. In California, if you're a Republican and you wake up on election day, you might feel like, man, I don't know if this really matters. And in Nebraska, if you wake up on election day as a Democrat, you might feel like, I don't know if this really matters. And then that skews everything one way. So it's not even about, to me, it's not about the right or the left. It's about trying to create systems that but give us a vehicle that gets us the best people who really wake up every morning themselves and want to do the most good for the most people that they represent. They don't think about the money in the party. It's like, I've got to satisfy 50% plus one of my constituents if I want to keep doing this job.
Yeah, and we'll get to money later in the interview here, Wes. But look at, I think Nebraska mirrors what a lot of states have done, and that is the continued increase in nonpartisan, non-affiliated voters. It continues to be more and more people are sick of those labels of a Democrat and a Republican and registering as nonpartisan or non-affiliated. And as you said, though, I mean, I think a lot of us experienced that in the last gubernatorial race that, I still happen to be a registered Republican, have been my whole life. I think rhino is the term that some of my friends refer to me as, but in reality, I think I mirror what a lot of people think is I would like to have that flexibility. I don't always vote along party lines, and the way that the system is set up, it hampers that ability to do that. And so what your group has advocated for would do away with that system. So. Talk a little bit, and there have been some efforts in the legislature. I think most recently, maybe in 2023, Senator Elliot Bostar introduced a bill designed to apply the election system we use for the legislature to all Nebraska elections. It didn't get far, as I recall.
It did not get out of committee. We haven't been able to get any either an open primaries or ranked choice voting to the floor yet since I've been involved with this, which goes back to 2016 or so.
What are some of the objections? I mean, and again, I understand party politics and the power of the Republican Party in this state, but beyond that, if Nebraskans want this bad enough, I assume we can make it happen. And I know ranked choice voting has maybe been criticized that it's maybe a little more confusing than our current system. But besides that, what are the objections? Why can't we get this up for a vote in the legislature?
I think it's what you just talked about. It's the parties. I mean, they really like the system, and I hate to say it to some degree, but it might be the media. They like it because these really contested primaries generate a lot of income. I've heard people say that like 25% or more, it might be a lot more of income is generated during election cycles through all those ads. But that isn't the biggest thing. The biggest thing is just people in control who are working with the system well, and they want the system to remain as it is because they know how to work it so they can stay in control. I mean, they don't say that. That's not part of their testimony, of course. Their testimony is, hey, Nebraskans are independent. We're smart. We don't need to break this down. We do identify as Republicans or Democrats. Why do we have to change the way we identify? Just all kinds of those types of discussions. But it's a dance in a way. I mean, we're a country that's supposed to be built on competitiveness, and we like to see big business succeed if they do a good product, etc. But then in the political field, it seems like we want to do things to put people into categories and separate them so they can continue to have their little monopolies within it, instead of putting us into an open competition with everybody to do what I said earlier, which is try to get people who are interested in satisfying the most people that they represent.
What amazes me, Wes, is we have the most unique system of a legislative body in America, the Nebraska unicameral. It works pretty damn well. And I know there's been efforts to make it more partisan. Just a couple of years ago, there was an effort to major change in the rules. And that was fought back, and we preserved a lot of that independence that, we don't have beaches, we don't have oceans or mountains and oceans. Once in a while we have a football team we can brag about, but that's it. And we should be championing that we have the most unique legislative body in America. And why not take that system of how we elect those people and continue it on to other offices?
Yep, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. And there is major pushback. I think there's, I looked at some data, I think there's 13 states have actually enacted legislation to stop ranked choice voting before they can even try to do it. And for your listeners, I think there might be some out there that don't know what ranked choice voting is. Can I kind of run through that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to read, I wrote this down because I want people to understand the process. So typically in a ranked choice voting system, there's more than 5, 4 or 5. Some people use a top 4 system. Some people use a top 5 system. And what happens is you go in and you rank your votes, and your ballot has the names, and then it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across the top. And you color in the 1 next to your first choice, the 2 next to your second choice, the 3 next to your third choice, etc. And sometimes people argue, why should I be forced to make more decisions and more choices? You don't have to. If you want to pretend you're under the old system, you color in 1 dot and you're using the old system. Yep. But anyway, so then they tally it up. And I've actually talked to the election systems people. They will not go public or anything, but all of the equipment and all of the infrastructure is there to do this.
Okay.
If it was announced we were doing it tomorrow, they could do it tomorrow.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm getting far afield when
that's
I'm trying to
okay.
do this.
No, that's good. No, that's
myself.
good. No, that's good.
So anyway, you fill in the dots, and then the first run through goes through. If someone has 50% plus 1, they win. They're elected, just like old times. If they don't win, like our Nebraska primary, where we had 3 candidates that were 25 to 32% or something, then everybody who didn't vote for. If your first vote is gone now, then your second vote is applied. So if your first vote is down there at number 5 or whatever, it's gone, and now your second vote is applied. Then all those are tallied back in, and then do we have 50% plus 1? If we don't, we go through the cycle again until we have 50% plus 1. When they use this in a primary system, it could save the state money too, because if you don't have 4 or 5 candidates, you don't have to have a primary. So you'd still use the ranked choice voting. You just use it in the general election and still use that process. And then the bottom line is, to me, it's what I said before. Every one of those people, my legislative candidate, I was in my front yard, and that person walked by me when they were knocking doors. And
You weren't on the list, Wes.
they looked at their phone, they looked at their app, and they just kept going. And I thought, wow, ranked choice voting or open primaries, that person would have talked to me. They would have come up and said, hey, I don't want to get into who it is, et cetera, right now, but they would have had that discussion with me. And so I think that creates a situation where every candidate wants to knock on every door. It also diminishes the attacking each other, because if you really like somebody and their opponent is just destroying the person you like, you're not going to rank them number 2.
Yes.
And a lot of these areas where they're using ranked choice voting, people actually campaign together. They will knock doors together and say, hey, make us 1 and 2. Or they will do joint appearances and say, hey, I want to be your number 1, but if it's not me, there's your number 2 right there.
The New York.
That just creates more of a cooperative environment to govern and to politic and to eventually provide services to people.
An example of that, the most recent one that got a lot of headlines was the New York mayor's race, right? The primary. And there were, I forget the candidates, but there were 2 of those candidates that were appearing together on late night talk shows.
Yep.
So
I think that is a better way to govern and try to create a governing situation, because we still get all the hate in the legislature. If you're into it, you see the way that people talk, and they throw the politics in it, and they do all that over and over and over again. And I think ultimately it would diminish that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Dan Osborn's campaign and whether you think that is part of the eventual solution to some of these problems. Dan Osborn, as people know, and just for transparency, I worked for Dan's campaign last year. I'm not on the team this year. So anyway, I know Dan well. I know that campaign well. I was part of the management and consulting team on that campaign, but kind of did something that hadn't been done in a long, long time. And that's, come close to defeating a Republican statewide office holder, the closest Senate race in many, many years here in the state. And he didn't do it with a D or an R behind his name. And so was really looked at as, changing the system but at the same time, well, anyway, we'll get into some other thoughts I have on that, but just your thoughts on Dan Osborn's campaign of eschewing both political parties and running as an independent.
I think it's great. And I wish it could happen more everywhere, but without this system that we're talking about, it can't really be successful. He's been fortunate that there wasn't a Democratic candidate against Fisher. And right now there's not a Democratic candidate. And I mean, if you obviously have done a little research on me before we talked, and he and I have a connection too. And I've talked to him. And in fact, I was promoting ranked choice voting at the Husker games by handing out rosters, and ran into him at his tailgate. And then Megan walked around with me at the Haymarket and handed out the rosters.
Nice.
So
Nice.
Promoting, just so we had the backside of it promoted ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
But that said, if somebody else gets in, he doesn't have a chance, in our environment. I hate to say that. I hate to put that out there, because I want the competitiveness of the head-to-head. But the best thing that has happened is the field has been cleared to some degree. So yes, I'm 100% into his campaign. I like the independence. If you talk to the guy, he's a very smart guy. He started talking about international trade and stuff like that. The very first time I met him, which is way before he was hot, he knew that stuff inside out.
Yep.
And some people were asking him questions about bankruptcy and some other things, and he didn't know the answer, and I did. And he was completely open to learning those things.
Yes.
And he walked out of there a smarter guy. I was smarter on international trade. He was smarter on how student loans are handled in bankruptcy, because people think you can just dump them, et cetera, and you can't. So we don't need to get into that.
Yeah.
But, I admire the man for knowing everything. I'm glad he's out there. I wish him much success, but the systems that we're suggesting would open that door for that to happen everywhere all the time.
Here is just taking the Osborn campaign as an example. And again, I'm not promoting Dan. I'm not picking on Dan. I'm staying. I obviously people come on this show and I highlight their campaigns, but I'm trying more and more to separate any political consulting work I do from my day job here on the podcast. So anyway, one of the criticisms from Dan Osborn's campaign and the other topic I wanted to chat with you about, and that is money in politics. Obviously, the Supreme Court's 2010 landmark Citizens United ruling allowed huge sums of dark money into our U.S. democracy. And a lot of people point to that as, part of the reason that we're in this mess that we're in with money in politics and how we may not ever be able to get out of it based on that Supreme Court ruling. But one of the criticisms from Dan Osborn's campaign was he took a shit ton of money from a lot of people across the country, and that helped him be competitive against a sitting United States Senator and Deb Fischer. And so despite him not being aligned to a political party, he still was able to have access to millions and millions of dollars, which helped him be more competitive in that race. So anyway, take that any way you like. Your thoughts on money in politics in 2025?
Well, unfortunately, I equate it to the California-Texas gerrymandering issues in a way. Sometimes you have to play the game you're playing.
Yep.
And that means if you have to have a ton of money to compete, you have to have a ton of money to compete, or you just lose.
Yep.
So if it was a football game and one side could throw forward passes, but the other side couldn't, it would be unfair.
Yeah.
So, I'm also associated with Represent Us, and they have a really nice video with Jennifer Lawrence out there. And it's a study, I think, from Princeton, but don't hold me to that. I think it's an Ivy League study. And what it shows is that if there's 100% support for legislation, or if there's zero support for legislation, it has the same probability of passing, which is about 33%. But if that legislation is supported by big money in some way or another, the chance rate raises from 33% to 66%. So the money even changes what legislation gets passed,
100%.
Which I think reaches back to your how do they react to open primary ranked choice voting asks in the legislature. The money influences things. The unfortunate thing for Nebraska is we're almost the worst. We're probably bottom two or so. It's just the Wild West here. You can throw money around like nobody's business without limits.
Yeah.
There was some legislation last year that didn't get out of committee, I think with a $1,500 limit. We need to tone that down big time. We have systems now where foreign money can come in like crazy. I mean, if China wants to throw a ton of money into a PAC, and then the PAC wants to throw a ton of money at legislators in Nebraska, they can throw all that money and they can control what happens. So we're not just talking about parties. We're talking about parties. We're talking about PACs, which opens the door to anybody from anywhere. And, it's just, whose phone call are they going to take? Are they going to take the person who probably funneled $75,000 into their campaign, or the person who gave them $12 a month for 12 months because they hit the wrong button on the campaign side?
And like you said, Wes, I mean, it really is an arms race, and to be able to level that playing field. And obviously, Nebraska passed some regulations in years past that were then found to be unconstitutional. But I mean, I think Nebraska does do a better job than maybe some states in the transparency of where that money is coming from, other than the dark money, situations. But yes, I'm old enough to remember when legislative campaigns didn't cost a minimum of $100,000 to win a seat in the legislature.
That pays $12,000.
That pays a stinking $12,000. Not even enough to Yeah, for a part-time gig. So,
Yeah, and I think, again, I like to tie it all together, but open primaries and ranked choice voting also make it harder to make that big money more effective, because they
correct.
can use that big money and they can channel it into the far right or the far left zones where they can really, I'm going to say, manipulate. Because if you see stuff on the internet, it's like, I cannot believe this is an ad that's running. This is, there's falsities in here like you can't believe. And if you're listening to a right wing podcast or a left wing podcast, you're getting manipulated by that.
Yep.
And who's paying? Well, heck, we even have the podcasters now. Are you one of those guys that's getting like $1 million from the Russians? Or?
Haven't seen it yet, Wes. You'll maybe know when it happens. My wardrobe will spruce up a little bit. But,
all right, and I don't know how much people know about that, but I mean that's out there.
It's true.
Too,
yes, it's absolutely true.
They own podcasters,
Yeah.
and that isn't even dark money. That's just, here's some money.
Yep.
So yeah, we need a lot of reform in a lot of those areas.
As we wrap up, Wes, by the way, fascinating conversation. Thank you for taking time to talk to us. Are there any efforts ongoing to either ranked choice voting or open primaries currently here in Nebraska? Where are you at in trying to get this over the finish line?
We really don't have anything specifically cooking right now. Every year we try to get somebody to offer these bills. Bostar did offer one, but I think that was 2 sessions ago, not the last session.
That's right.
And McAllister was a real champion for this for a while. He would offer these bills all the time. Where ranked choice voting has succeeded is where it gets to be used by cities. And I am really trying to get the legislature to say, we'll try ranked choice voting. We don't have to go crazy and just do everything all at once. Let's just write legislation that says if Omaha wants to use it, they can use it. If Lincoln wants to use it, they can use it. You can use it if you choose to use it. And they did that in Utah, and I don't know my numbers exactly, but somewhere between like 10 and 15 cities chose to use it. And now they're up into the mid-20s, pushing 30 cities using it. And the funny thing is, I'm going to equate it to Nebraska, but let's say Kearney started using ranked choice voting, but Holdridge and Minden and Grand Island didn't. And then they used it, and then all of a sudden Holdridge and Minden adopted it the next time around. So what's happening is wherever it's used, it gets more than a 60% approval. People like it when they start using it. And so the people that are in general areas start talking to each other and they say, dang, I wish we had that system here. And they say, well, you can. We'll talk to your city council because it's available. No. So I'm going a little long there, but
no.
I think is the entry to it. And I hope they offer all these things, but I think the best thing would be to open it, to do it at that level. And the other thing we have to do, I think, is at the open primaries to me is a no-brainer because really you're in a way, there's 49% last time I looked registered Republicans in the state of Nebraska. And so you might be eliminating the real effective ability in a lot of places for people to vote because they'll just never, their vote won't matter that much because of our primary problem.
Yeah.
So, and can I add one other thing? I'm kind of working on, and I hope we can do in the future, and I'm hoping to get some help with it. But like independently, I am trying to get people together, and I would like to come up with a way to kind of pre-screen candidates. And I have like a questionnaire that I've been trying to send out to them and say, rank these from 1 to 5, give them a 1 to 5 rating, not a rank, but open primaries, nonpartisan election commissions, ranked choice voting, voter motor registration. I've got a little list.
Sure.
And dark money. Do you think foreign entities should be allowed to contribute to PACs that contribute to whatever, and rank that from 1 to 5? And then I talked to some mathematicians that were involved in the original fights on drawing the lines at the last census. And I ran it by those mathematicians, and they kind of gave me a system of grading it. And they said, so if you get 3 to 4, you could give them a rating and say, you're not doing an endorsement, but this is their democracy rating. They're a 3.5 or they're a 5.0 or they're, and then we would give an option that said chose not to answer, and then just make those available. So to me, our structures and our institutions are what really keep us intact. And I think the things that attack those and destroy those are all these culture war issues that we have to deal with every day. And everybody loves, I mean, if I was doing what you're doing, we'd be talking about the culture war stuff, because it's like, let's talk about bathrooms, let's talk about whatever. But the bottom line is, while we're talking about that, tons of dark money's coming in.
Yeah.
They're manipulating us. People are getting things done because they own politicians, because of the thing I said. Whose phone call are they going to take? Yours or the person who they know is getting them $100,000 a year, either directly or indirectly?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Wes Dodge, pleasure to meet you virtually and help educate our audience a little bit more. How can people find out more about these efforts? Where can people go?
Well, we've got a Better Ballots website, which needs updating, but we're working on that. And then if you look at Represent Us, look for us on Instagram, Represent Us Omaha. Okay. Look for us on Instagram and Facebook and those kinds of things. And if anybody's interested in that last thing I talked about, and they send any sort of email and say, hey, I'd be interested in helping you out with that. I mean, I'd really like some help with that, and see if I can. I would like that system, I'd like to have that opportunity to do that kind of thing. So just Google those things. Common Cause is getting a better social media presence now than we had in the past. So if you just try to follow the social media on those three, Common Cause Nebraska, Represent Us Omaha, or Represent Us Nebraska, and then Better Ballots.
We will put those in the show notes, Wes, so people
I
can
appreciate
find them.
that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, thanks to the people who made this podcast possible. Penology Tech Solution, Kim Remington, Parsons PR's Director of Operations, Chase Porter, who produced this episode, and producer Ike Simonis. But most importantly, thanks to each of you for tuning in. Hey, and if you liked this video on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It really helps. Okay, that's today's show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.